Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 1. Our members are Kamelia Sari, Kiki Hadiansah, and Laila Turrahmi. So right now we are going to explain about the ethics of science. So without any further ado, let's begin. Sorry, here is our presentation agenda. There will be introduction that will be discussed by Bang Kiki, and then the second part is discussion that will be discussed by Kamelia Sari and Laila, and the last part will be discussed by Kak Aila. Now let's go to the first chapter, which is introduction that will be discussed by Bang Kiki. Bang Kiki, you are pleased.
Right. First, we talk about philosophy. Yes. Philosophy is science that deals with humans' life every day. Filsafat ialah keilmuan yang berhubungan dengan kehidupan manusia setiap hari. Filsafat ialah pengetahuan dan penyelidikan dengan akal budi mengenai segala hal yang ada di alam semesta ini, mengetahui kebenaran dan juga arti adanya sesuatu. And then, philosophy in science. Philosophy has concept of good and bad thinkers known as ethics. Filsafat sebagai keilmuan ialah sebagai konsep good and bad, baik dan buruk. Itulah yang kita kenal dengan etika. Artinya, yang pertama tadi ada filosofi atau filsafat, membicarakan tentang segala sesuatu, kemudian sesuatu itu akan melahirkan sebuah konsep. Apakah konsep itu baik atau buruk? Kemudian lahirlah sebuah etika. And then ethics, Greek words, ethos, character, in English, ethics. Kemudian, ethics atau etika berasal dari bahasa Yunani, ethos, atau kita kenal dengan karakter, watak, perasaan, sikap, dan adat kebiasaan. Yes, please, Kak Aila. Definition of ethics based on principle. First, ethics is a science which is a collection of virtues about the judgment of one's action. Merupakan kumpulan kebaikan-kebaikan atau kebajikan-kebajikan tentang penilaian satu tindakan. Artinya di sini etika sebagai keilmuan merupakan kumpulan-kumpulan kebaikan sehingga nanti itu dinilai suatu tindakan dari suatu aktivitas tersebut. Kemudian yang kedua, second, ethics is the tense of action, namely the act of virtue. Ethics in this case is seen as a normative and evaluative science that only gives good or bad values to human behavior. Kemudian yang kedua ini ada ethics in the sense of action, etika dalam tindakan. Masih menyangkut tentang kebaikan-kebaikan, kemudian etika dalam hal ini dipandang sebagai ilmu normatif dan evaluatif yang memberikan nilai, juga memberikan nilai, baik itu nilai baik dan nilai buruk pada perilaku manusia. Artinya yang pertama tadi, etik as a science tadi, melahirkan sebuah penilaian terhadap suatu tindakan, kemudian dari tindakan tadi, maka lahirlah sebuah praktek, apakah melahirkan sebuah kebaikan ataupun keburukan pada perilaku manusia. Kemudian Yang ketiga itu ada ethics as philosophy. Ethics as philosophy which studies views issue with moral issues. Artinya di sini etika sebagai filsafat yang mempelajari tentang pandangan masalah dengan moral. Artinya di sini yang pertama tadi ada ethics as a science, artinya di sana ada sebuah tindakan, kemudian sebuah tindakan itu akan melahirkan ethics in the sense of action. Artinya di sana ada sebuah tindakan, apakah dia baik ataukah buruk. Kemudian barulah dinilai apakah perbuatan baik atau buruk tadi menyangkut dengan masalah moral. Oke, please Kak Aila. Next. Back to yes. Scientific ethics. Scientific ethics mengenalkan tentang bagaimana hakikat, introduce the nature and process of formation, proses terbentuknya, and institution. Artinya di sini scientific ethics atau etika ilmiah atau etika keilmuan mengenai hakikat. Artinya tadi scientific ethics tadi yang mengenai hakikat ini berhubungan dengan ethics of science tentang keilmuan tadi. Kemudian proses of formation, proses terbentuknya, adanya ethics in the sense of action, adanya sebuah action, sebuah tindakan. Kemudian maka lahirlah sebuah moral, bagaimana di dalam perilaku tersebut ataupun mengenai sesuatu tersebut, apakah good or bad thinkers.
Next, Kak.
Okay, please discussion, Kak.
The next one will be discussed by me. So next, Kak. Okay, the starting point that should guide ethics in a global world is the concern to formulate new principles in keeping with the reality that humanity as a whole faces and people's contributions to assert themselves in society. So to get to know more about ethics, we have the main approaches here. The first one is meta-ethics. So meta-ethics is sometimes called as descriptive. It deals with the objective and non-judgmental description of the language used as much as possible. For instance, it talks about egoism, moralism, and also word hunger. This meta-ethics is the foundation of prescriptive. It focuses on the moral problems, and it teaches us to be always good. For example, if you are hit by a man and then you may not hit him back, because according to meta-ethics, it is morally wrong to hit someone, no matter who they are. And then the second one is prescriptive. Prescriptive is sometimes called as normative. So normative ethics doesn't merely observe about the moral itself, but it intervenes themselves to give the value of people's behavior. It aims to establish norms or rules that govern what is right and also what is wrong. Prescriptive norms is concerned with what reality is. It seeks to give us a framework of ethics and tell us about how to live in this life. We can say that this kind of ethic aims to build principles of ethics that can be accounted and also can be used practically. For instance, if you want to pass the exam, you have to study. Other books say that there are 3 types of ethics. One more type is applied ethics. However, we took the source from Barber and Stanton that categorize applied ethics in prescriptive. It happens since applied ethics is the implementation of prescriptive theories to specific issues such as justice, abortion, death penalties, and human rights. So, next card, please. Okay. Before that, I will give the more example about meta ethics and also prescriptive ethics. So, for example, there is a terrorist that is killed by a police officer in the mall. According to according to meta ethics, the police officer's action is morally wrong because people do not deserve to be killed, whoever they are. However, according to prescriptive, it is okay to kill the terrorist because if the police officer doesn't kill the terrorist, the terrorist will kill many people because there are many people in the mall. That's how we can differentiate between ethics and also prescriptive. The ethics in science is actually normative ethics, since we have to deal with the principles of ethics and that can be trusted rationally and can be explained logically. In doing the ethics, we have some principles here. The first one is moral. So moral is becoming the standard of human behavior related to the principle of what is right and what is wrong in society. According to M.I. Adib, there are four meanings of moral. The first one is good, bad, right, wrong, correct, incorrect in human activities. The second one is the right action, fair and reasonable. The third one is the capacity to be directed to the awareness of right and wrong, and the certainty to direct others based on the rules of behaviors that are judged to be right and wrong. And the last one is a person's attitude with other people. To make it easier, ethics is the theory of right action, and it is the underlying principles of moral. While morality is the action or the practice of rightness and wrongness that tell us about what we have to do. And the second one is norm. Norms are rules that grow and live in our society or binding element and control humans. According to KBBI, norms are rules or provisions used to bind groups of citizens in society as a form of guidance, order, and control of appropriate and acceptable behavior. For instance, people must obey the rules. So actually ethics, moral ethics, and norms are interrelated because they try to direct humans to have good mindset, attitude, and behavior in social life. So the next part will be discussed by Kak Laila. And Kak Laila, you are pleased.
Thank you to Miss Camelia. And then next, number 3 is about the standard of ethical conduct. A scientist must have a mindset that reflects himself as a scientist. It means that a good scientist must also have a good attitude that can show his personality as a scientist. A scientist can be said to people who are involved in the field of science. And then next, according to KBBI, in 2005, on page 425, it states that a scientist must have a scientific attitude because it is following his understanding. It means that the scientific attitude possessed by a scientist is form of understanding of science. Therefore, a scientist must have a mindset that reflects himself as a scientist. And then Actually, there are so many attitudes or ethics or standard ethics that scientists must have. Among of them, our groups sum it up into five. Of these five attitudes is a philosophy that really must owned by the scientists. And then let's we discuss them one by one. The first one is about honesty. Here, honesty, as we know that, is an attitude to tell the truth and not to say things that violate the fact. It can be said that being honest means not cheating or stealing and have to doing something according to the rules. Here, honesty is a moral character that has a positive connotation. In this principle, scientists strictly uh, prohibit from falsifying, fabricating, even the misinterpreting data or the research. In this case, scientists must be objective and impartial to anyone. In specific sense, they must adhere to the principle of honesty in all aspects of the research process. And then the second one is carefulness and diligence. As a scientist, accessible in conducting experiment in the world, scientists must be careful and diligent in working. They must to minimize the errors that will occur as much as possible, whether there are from the experimental errors or methodological errors or systematic errors, even human errors that may come from themselves or others. Their carelessness in the work will have a fatal consequences. Therefore, a scientific thirst becomes the central point for the scientist. And then the next, number three, is openness and fairness. A scientist cannot be selfish in doing their work. In this principle, scientists must show their open attitude by willing to accept critics and suggestions from others. They might not manipulate the data since it will let them to do the untrustable work. The fourth is respect, credit, and efficiency. Here, a scientist must respect to others scientists, right? And then the object of this research also, and also the environmental and also the researches without being discrimination and causing of condensation. A scientist must have a perspective allowing the standard, so they can be responsible in their research. And then from for a scientist, an objective values are always the being a primary goal, and they do not want to be tied to subjective values. Thus, here a scientist can get a credit as a form of appreciation of what they have researched. Moreover, it has a good and being a beneficial impact on the others and the surrounding environment. And the last one is education. Uh, as educated as educated scientists, it is hoped that they will be able to share what they have learned with others. A scientist have to be a good guide to the another learner in doing proper research and doing the right step also. A scientist also expected to let the media to know that about their work and to recognize their position and take them as a lesson. Um, I think those points above are the essential points for the scientist. And then we next, the third one or the last one about the conclusion. Um, there are some points that we can get, especially from what our members has explained before. It can be concluded that the first one, ethics is essential human life because the good and bad of humans can be seen from ethics or actions. By studying the scientific ethics, we hope that the scientists can apply a moral principle and avoid the bad things in their scientific behavior to be responsible for their scientific behavior. Thus, the role of ethics in science can continue to influence all scientists who will conduct it to future research. I think that's all from our presentation. We back to Ms. Camelia. Thank you.
Okay, that's all for our presentation. Thank you for your attentions and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.